He first found his brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah." He brought Simon to Jesus. Please be seated. There's a lot in this gospel today. There's major players, there's plot development, there's some really big theological concepts, and yet, this week my attention kept zooming back in on Andrew and what Andrew has to teach us about being a disciple. We learned that Andrew had been following John the Baptist, and after hearing John proclaim who Jesus is, he takes it to heart, but not before running to his brother and saying, "We have found the Messiah. Come and see what I have found." Andrew goes and brings his brother to Jesus, and both of their lives are changed. It's hard for us to imagine the story of the early church without Peter, or Andrew for that matter. Being a disciple is very rarely about those solitary, direct experiences of God, meditating in the desert alone as the sky opens up, or something like that. But much more often, it's this dynamic process of coming alongside other people of faith who have called us in, and then turning around and being that disciple for others. Many, if not all of us, have had those companions in our lives who said, "Come and see where I've found God." Who are the Andrews who have brought us along to God, to experiences of God we might not have ventured into all on our own? One of the many Andrews in my life is, hilariously enough, named Andrew. We met in divinity school, and I was exploring faith again after a big crisis. But one thing was clear: it would not be what it was before. Like so many resurrection experiences, the new life doesn't fit exactly into the old one, and I was in this period of searching, of paying closer attention, of consciously trying some things that felt outside the spiritual box of my old life. And my friend Andrew, much like the Andrew in the gospel sounds like, is warm and exuberant and larger than life. He draws people to him wherever he goes. He's exactly the kind of person that you would imagine when I asked you to imagine someone from New Orleans. And that winter, Andrew invited all of his new divinity school friends to Mardi Gras. And this is where I hope that you know me well enough by now to follow me through in this trust fall part of the sermon to the end of this story. Because most of us have a first reaction similar to the one you might be having right now. What business did a bunch of nerdy seminarians have going to one of the most famous parties in the world? But Andrew assured us that what he was inviting to was different than we might imagine. We'd be joining this group of his good friends, some locals like him, and then some people who were pilgrims who traveled there year after year to spend that week together. There would be fun and dancing and music, of course, but also ritual and connection, and really living into the side of spirituality that we laid down for Lent on Ash Wednesday. I decided to accept that invitation, and what I experienced when I came along, when I went to see, was much more than he could have described. That group that gathered included seekers of so many stripes, just glorying and being together in that season set apart for celebration. In the days leading up to Tuesday, I witnessed such intense generosity of people in food, in music, in attention, and presence. We woke up at dawn on Mardi Gras morning, and we met with this band named the St. Anthony's Ramblers on the edge of the Benevenia district. Probably saying that incorrectly. The band leader asked for this moment of silence once there were a few hundred people gathered, and then the trumpets rose and the musicians took one deep breath together, and they pulled our crowd along with this cloud of grassy noise. And the intersections opened as we got closer to the center of town, and we started converging on dozens of other bands and their followers. There were no spectators here. We, the people, were the celebration. And after several hours of this, Andrew gathered our group, and together we went to the river. We scrambled out onto these rocks and looked on the Mississippi. Far behind us, the party was still going, but this was set apart. This community came together every year and chose this place at the water to gather up all of that wonder and love and connection and raise it to God, even if some of those people wouldn't have named God as the person we were raising it to. A leader stood up to pray and said, "Think about your past year. Look into your hearts. What do you bring here to celebrate? What do you bring here to mourn?" We looked to the sky and we looked at each other, and we all named what happened for us over the past year. There were deaths and marriages and separations and success and failures. And they entrusted these once-a-year prayers to each other. And Andrew led us in a hymn, and everything fell quiet again. And I realized that we had just done church. Mardi Gras became part of my coming back. It became part of this expanding idea of worship for me, of being in faith as my whole self, bringing my body along for the ride, and practicing that vulnerability and prayer in community, in public, which was something I had forgotten how to do. There was no way I would have wound up in that place without Andrew's invitation, without his "come and see what I have found." And I'd be willing to bet here in this room that many, if not all of us, have been those companions, those disciples who have said to others, "Come with me, come and see where I found God." When have we walked in Andrew's steps? I can say I've already seen this kind of invitation at St. Thomas. This "come and see what I've found" moving through our community. In December, we hosted an Advent program for the families with young children. And what blew me away was how many folks took the opportunity to bring others along. There were grandchildren and nephews and nieces. There were children's friends. There were spouses who aren't big Sunday worship people. And there were family friends who aren't religious at all. And I was blessed to watch as Julie led all of us through the story of Christmas, through this pivotal story in our faith about who God is for us, and then make messy cookie art and messy sing-alongs and make a dent in a mountain of pizza, really sharing the love of this place. We're drawn into following Jesus, drawn deeper into discipleship by coming alongside our Andrews who are saying, with their words or with their actions, "Come and see what I've found." And these experiences empower us to turn around and do the same for others. So my prayer for myself and for all of us this morning is for open hearts and ears and eyes. Who in our midst can we bring along into those places where we're already meeting God? And whose invitations to come and see might we pay closer attention to?